So, Dan Bongino reveals a good amount about Fox News. Thinking that some of you guys may have heard about these quote unquote woke policies being exposed at Fox News, and yes, we're here to talk about. We're going to kind of revisit Tucker Carlson and obviously Dan Bongino, the guy whose face you saw in the thumbnail. However, this right here is actually pretty well deep. And I'm also going to be giving you guys some information on why it is that I've been posting a little bit less recently and a couple of updates towards the end. But don't worry, it's kind of a bigger overall scheme, just some things kind of going on here. So I kind of thought to myself, look, let's just go ahead and kind of do some of the more bigger stories that I think exist out there that I think are not being covered enough, which, by the way, in fact, do need to be covered and do need some form of a rational explanation for. Now, with that right there out of the way, let's go ahead and discuss this. So 2 nights ago, Dan Bongino was on the Timcast IRL. Now, before we talk about Bongino, I want you to know right now that these videos that I did on Tucker Carlson and the one that I did with Sean Hannity, supposedly replacing Carlson in this time slot, those videos will be in the description box. I'm pretty sure at this moment in time that everybody's kind of speculated as much as you possibly can on why Tucker Carlson was eventually fired. Of course, him being fired has something to do with, obviously, the fact that he was probably getting a little bit too close. There's the whole 6-1 thing. I have to invert the two numbers because of YouTube's algorithm. There's also the fact that Tucker Carlson was covering issues that nobody else wanted to cover. And according to Bongino, it looked like Fox News did not want to re-sign either one of these two. We'll get to that here soon because somehow or other Bongino was kind of like thrown in the... let's just say he was kind of thrown in the haystack below Tucker Carlson was, and people just completely forgot about Dan Bongino. However, at the end of the second clip, I'm pretty sure you guys will probably get a very good idea of why this occurred, but don't worry, we'll get there soon. The thing is this right here. One of the main theories that has been asserted is that that Rupert Murdoch can't contain, or he can't exactly get full control of his actual... let's just say his commentators. He can't get full control of certain people, like, say, Tucker Carlson was one. Another one, of course, was Dan Bongino. I personally think that Sean Hannity is going through a bit of a humiliation ritual. We'll get to that more towards the end. And, of course, there are other people out there asserting that he does not have full control of Jesse Waters. Now, guys, I put this tweet out earlier. This was a couple of days ago, and it was just more and more information that came out on Jesse Waters. Now, if you want to make fun of me for being a Jesse Waters fan, go right ahead and do so. Like I said before, I don't really watch Fox News. I haven't watched it for a long time, but I would tune in to Tucker Carlson and Jesse Waters' monologues. I've always thought they were two of the more effective voices, especially Jesse Waters. When I'd watch Politicon debates that involved Cenk Uygur and Ben Shapiro and Dinesh D'Souza, I oftentimes thought to myself, how would these liberals do against someone like Jesse, a man who actually was on the street for a while, of course, Waters' world. And, of course, you find out stuff that he wanted Neil Cavuto gone, and, of course, he wanted Chris Wallace gone. You got to think to yourself, maybe Jesse Waters is probably the next one to go. And the mere fact that Jesse Waters is not being considered for that 8 o'clock time slot may make you think that, yes, him and Gutfeld, who, by the way, Gutfeld has exploded, just may be finding themselves in the unemployment line here soon. Of course, these guys won't stay unemployed for very long, but still, it comes down to what are the real reasons why it was that guys like Carlson and guys like Bongino, why in the world will they let go? We got all the theories out there, and I've discussed them all. However, I think that having Dan Bongino show up on the internet kind of adds a little bit to this. Now, before we go any further, Bongino had his own YouTube channel, his own podcast, and of course he's on Rumble. Bongino had more followers on Rumble, which is a little bit more friendlier to the right. And when he was basically suspended from YouTube, where he wasn't suspended, he was straight up banned from YouTube. I have no idea the real reasons why. They keep giving you these reasons, but let's just be honest. YouTube just bans people on the right constantly, anybody who's got a voice. And Bongino's response was simply like, okay, screw it, go right ahead and do so. I've got many, many more followers on Rumble. But then Fox decided to let him go. Fox decided to get rid of him. But I'd also noticed that Bongino's role at Fox, he had not been showing up as a contributor as much. I noticed that right before Bongino was let go. Well, I'm here to show you guys a few minutes of a couple of segments. They may actually shed some light on this. Now, this first segment is going to be discussing, let's just say, the overall intro of what actually goes on at Fox News itself. We'll come back on the other side, and this is how we're going to do it in this video.
I'm going to go down there. Have they thought this through?
Has Fox News considered maybe leaving New York?
They should. They should. I mean, listen, after the Tucker thing, they've got bigger problems. I mean, I'm not sure. A lot of people link their book. This is a great. Can I read something to you? It's quick, I promise. I hate when people read stuff on Etsy. Yeah. But someone gave this up to Breitbart, and this kind of explains it all. They said, because this is kind of accurate. They're talking about why me and Tucker weren't re-signed. And some source told them, this is from a Map Oil piece, that Bongino and Carlson, one source said, were considered the two most likely to say "fuck you" to management. It's right here. A network insider said, adding that Bongino gave 0 fucks and Tucker gave even less fucks. So that's kind of true. That's why, I'm not furious at them, because I wasn't the easiest guy to work with. I'm not going to mess.
How did it end? You were just doing it, and then they fired you?
No. So the show was number one. I mean, demo and overall. You can't get higher number one. Like we were rocking it, man. We were pulling in killer numbers. Even we were at 10 and at 9 at both spots. And they wanted to re-sign for about 6 months. And I don't have an agent. I do my own deals always. I don't need it. I like my own stuff. So I was the one doing all the negotiating. There was never a question they wanted to show ever. And then about 2 weeks out, but at the end of the contract was, I think, April 30th or whatever. I don't remember off the top of my head. But about 2 weeks out, I noticed the tone changed completely. And I don't know what happened. I at that point, I wanted to re-up for a year. And I said, let's just punt this down the road and let's re-up for a year. And then, I don't know, it just seemed like they weren't interested. But, the people I was dealing with there, they were genuine with me. Like, they never bullshitted me at all. No one ever said to me something that didn't happen. So I can't sit here and say, again, it's easy for me to pile on. And I have no reason. I don't work there. I'm probably never going to work there again. I may never do a hit again on Fox. But I'm not going to tell anybody fairy tales that aren't true, because that's like short-run clickbait stuff. But in the long run, it dings your credibility. Now, the Tucker story, it's got some angles to it, So I don't know if something happened last minute that post-Dominion where they were like, let's just clean house and get rid of these two. I don't know that. But, things did change the last 2 weeks.
So here's the interesting thing about this leaked policy exposing Fox News' stance on woke ideology. They say things that I think are kind of obvious, considering Fox is based in New York City, that your gender identity is protected, whether or not it conforms. This is New York City and state law, I'm pretty sure. And I've long talked about how the laws in New York City open the door for a major problem if anyone actually chooses to put it to the test. So in the Daily Signal article, they actually link.
Initial thinking is that the city of New York is governing Fox News. I guess in a lot of ways it makes sense, but it almost makes me think that there's something else going on here. That Daily Signal article that you guys saw says 2021 is apparently when they were obviously tinkering with this, but I believe it occurred a lot earlier than that. You guys listened to roughly 3 minutes and 7 seconds of that clip, and don't worry, I'll be leaving that entire segment, if not the entire episode itself, in the description box. I like to do that so that way you guys can kind of catch up on it, as well as the additional videos that I'm going to be putting in there. Now, here's the thing. What I took out of that was that Fox News, for the most part before 2020, was a pretty relaxed company. Now, I noticed the direction shift roughly sometime in 2017, 2018. However, it became much more apparent in 2019. I recall one Trump rally that was he did that was online. I think we're right side broadcasting, where he said that, what's up with Fox? He noticed that Fox had brought in Donald Brazil. He had noticed that Fox had brought in a lot more left-leaning personalities. And then, of course, there was that whole Newt Gingrich, Marie Harf thing.
Attorneys are anti-police, pro-criminal, and overwhelmingly elected with George Soros's money, and they're a major cause of the violence we're seeing because they keep putting the violent criminals back on the street.
I'm not sure we need to bring George Soros into this.
He paid for it. I mean, why can't we discuss the fact that millions
No,
of
he
dollars
didn't.
he spent
I agree with
electing
Melissa.
these
George
people?
Soros doesn't need to be a part of this conversation.
Okay. So it's verboten.
All right.
And another thing too, I don't know if you guys noticed it or not, but Harris Faulkner's facial expressions seemed to me like she just did not want to. She didn't want to shut him down. Okay, when she spoke up the first time, it seemed to me like she did it mostly out of panic. The second time, she kind of knew she screwed up. Whereas Marie Harf, on the other hand, yeah, Marie Harf, white liberal Karen. She was definitely more than happy with saying, yeah, I don't think we need to bring him up. So here's the deal. And I know I'm taking a second to kind of get this out because I want to be very deliberate on this. I remember at a time, I would say it was right around 2000, and they really were doing this before then, but this guy here was not exactly what we call off limits. You were allowed to bring that up. You were allowed to talk about that. But there was also a period in time where they wouldn't have the great Rush Limbaugh on. They would have him on as a guest from time to time. And at one point in time, they even had Greta Van Susteren there, who, by the way, is at Newsmax. You had Eric Bolling. You had a lot of very good personalities. I was never really and truly that big of a fan of Bill O'Reilly. But even say, we'll take Juan Williams, for example. Very, very, very much a lib. Juan Williams would fill in for Bill O'Reilly, and he would fill in sometimes for conservative guests, and he would actually use their script. Fox News had a much more conservative slant, much more conservative bias. It still obviously does today, but obviously their bias towards Republican establishment rather than the America First movement. It's probably one of the main reasons why it is that Tea Party voters stayed home in 2012. I have asserted that for a very long time, that a lot of people who are watching Fox News who did not like Barack Obama, who came out and voted in 2010 to put Republicans in office to stop the what appeared to be a very socialistic agenda, which, by the way, I'll talk more about at the very end of the video. It seems to me like what happened is that they wanted to kind of crap on the then movement, which, by the way, was mostly Tea Party conservatives. Of course, we now refer to that as the America First movement because the America First movement is really just a continuation of that movement there. Don't worry. I'll probably do more videos on that in the future. The thing is this right here. Fox seems to have fostered a pretty loose environment. You pretty much could do whatever you wanted to do as long as you stayed on script. And, of course, during 2020, it seemed like it was still a relatively solid work environment. Of course, we've heard a lot of stories that have came out, a lot of movies that came out there. One with Charlize Theron where she played Megyn Kelly. And, I never really got to see that movie. Really, to tell you the truth, nobody actually went to go see that movie from what I understand. But still, at the same time, a lot of things were coming out about Fox roughly right around 2015, 2016, but a lot of it was actually debunked. Then, of course, you get to this time frame here, which was really a few years ago, because I kind of consider 2020 to still be in our time frame because we've quite frankly been shaped by it. Fox, for whatever reason, just started acting all kinds of screwed up. We could talk about 2020 all day, but the thing about talking about 2020 is it finds a way to, let's just say it finds a way to trip the algorithm, it finds a way to trip the censors in a very, very negative way and could also get you in trouble. The thing is this right here. If you paid very, very close attention to what he was saying at the very end, you kind of get the impression that he did not leave on very bad terms. However, this next segment that I'm about to show you guys right here, though, is really the one that kind of takes the cake as far as the direction of Fox. And don't worry, we'll talk about New York because I'm pretty sure that I did not address it enough. And I'll be addressing it more in the very, very end. Let's go ahead and roll the second segment, roughly 3 minutes, 1 second.
Policy exposes Fox News' stance on woke ideology. So, of course, the big story, Tucker Carlson gets ousted. Several reports have said he got the boot because it was part of the Dominion settlement. But, Dan, you had a show there, a huge show. Yeah. So I don't know if you have any insights into this, but I'll just say outright, this is like a big exclusive where apparently now people are coming up from Fox News saying inside the company, it is woke. It is very lefty. I think the obvious thing is you're in New York City. You got New York City laws. Yeah. These laws are pretty broad. And I'm going to get into the heaviness of these laws, but I'm curious, your experience at Fox News, you go from politics, then you're into, radio, now your personality, now you've got a show on Fox News. Did you see any of this woke stuff there?
Yeah, man. I mean, it was real. Now, here's the thing. I didn't work in Fox in New York. I had my own studio in Florida. And I got to tell you, Fox never did me wrong. Like, we would fight about a lot of stuff. And, I said I was talking to Megyn Kelly about this last week. But it wasn't anything unusual you wouldn't see on his show. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, don't cover that topic. I said often, like, they never told me what to talk about because I just would have talked about it anyway. I mean, there's a reason. But I didn't use a prompter on a lot of my segments. Some of them we did, but that doesn't happen at Fox. Like almost nobody. I think there's one host. I don't think Cavuto uses a prompter, but it's for different reasons. But almost nobody goes without a prompter. Matter of fact, I had Jesse on as a guest one day in New York. Rarely I would do my show from New York, like once or twice a quarter or something. And Jesse came in and I did this big like rant, and he's looking at a prompter and it just says like, Dan Adlib. And I go on. And he's like, dude, you did that out of your head? And he's like, well, how'd you hit the mark and stuff? I said, I'm used to it with talk radio. Like we did our thing. So no one ever told me what to say because I wouldn't have listened anyway. But here's the thing. Like Tim brings up a point because it's hard. I know it's easy to, like pile on. And if anybody has a reason to be angry with everything going on, it's me. I was there. I'm pissed about what happened. I am. I would, the relationship there, I put a lot of time into. But he's not wrong. I mean, forget this stuff for a second. I'll get to that. I'm not trying to avoid it, but I'll give you a perfect example. The vaccine thing. They did everything they can with me to make it easy for people to not get canned with the mandate. But they were in New York. Like they had they would have shut the building down. I lived that. They did everything they could to make sure nobody got canned. Like, okay, you're going to do this and you're going to do remote stuff. All right, would I like them to like punch him in the face in New York and say, this is stupid, we're not doing it? Yeah, but with this is different. I mean, this is kind of like, I read the story. Looks like they really went overboard with this. You got to remember, you got a lot of serious conservatives there. How are they going to feel? Say you're a female conservative host there, which they have a few.
To the New York City Commission on Human Rights definitions, they say gender expression is the representation of gender as expressed through one's name, pronouns, clothing, hairstyle, behavior, voice, or similar characteristics. Gender expression may or may not conform to gender stereotypes, norms, and expectations in a given culture. It actually says that, meaning if you put on a safari costume from the 1800s and call yourself the Colonel with a fake beard, that is quite literally what they're referring to. Historical period? You can dress up like a pirate. They wouldn't put historical period as protected unless they expected people to dress up like colonial era pirates.
You cannot run a conservative company out of New York City. You cannot. There is no way. You realize this was the intention of the left hijacking corporate America too, right? You mentioned HRC and the DEI, I call it the DI stuff.
The ESG stuff.
Because they want you to violate your own core tenet principles, which does what? It obviously alienates you from the core audience that funds you. By the way, my producer Guy downstairs watching the chat.
What up, Guy?
He says, the chat's convinced you're on drugs. They're not used to the energy. I am not on any professional narcotics.
He didn't even.
First and foremost, I don't think that Dan Bongino was on drugs. That little clip went on a little bit extra, but if you watch the podcast, you'll see that his eyes are like popping up like this right here a lot. I do know that he's had a lot of surgeries recently, and he's had a lot of health problems, but I don't believe he's on any form of drugs or anything like that. But you guys can make whatever interpretation you guys want to. If you want to have fun in the comment section, go right ahead and do that. I actually encourage it. Here's the deal. I touched on this at the beginning of the last clip, the New York policies. Okay, New York right now is getting to the point where just about anything and everything is legal. I mean, hell, you had a candidate for governor, Lee Zeldin, literally get assaulted. Some guy tried to stab him, and that guy was let out of prison, was let out of jail, not even in the same day. All kinds of crazy stuff is going on up there, and you're probably thinking to yourself, obviously, ESG scores. Well, if ESG scores was the biggest reason, then why in the world would they not have conservative voices up there anymore? Or why in the world would some conservative voices still remain? I think the idea is to put weak conservatives up there on the panel from now on. Let's take a look at Fox News' lineup really quick. And I understand this right here is mostly opinion, but I'm just kind of speculating on things. First and foremost, what you heard him say about Tucker Carlson and himself. These right here were the two guys who we were probably the least likely to screw around with. Now, what would that mean? That Tucker Carlson and Dan Bongino were probably the two most based in their actual beliefs, based in their most ideology, meaning that they were not going to go along with the narrative or whatever Fox News was going to script. So practically what was going on was that Tucker Carlson was saying, you know what, man, F your script. I'm going to do things my own way. Same thing with Dan Bongino. Sean Hannity has been at that company for years, and he's been reading the Fox News script, and quite frankly, they've allowed him to basically do whatever, but you can also tell that he's a little bit more constrained. Now, I also didn't notice the CIA pin until roughly right around 2020. Maybe I'm blind. Maybe I didn't see it before. Jesse Waters seems to me to be the kind of guy that does not want to go along with the script, but will go along with the script, obviously, to take care of his family. He's like 43, 44 years old. He got married to a second wife recently. The conditions of what happened there, that is up for you guys to interpret. Some people thought it was kind of shady, but then again, though, some people thought it was obviously the natural order. I'm not a marriage expert, so I'm not going to sit here and talk about this. Greg Gutfeld is pretty well based in his ideology, too. You see, my feeling is that Fox News is trying to replace anybody and everybody who is somewhat based. They're trying to get rid of them with people. They're trying to replace them with people who, quite frankly, are not. Brian Kilmeade, in my opinion, is an absolute joke. I mean, I've never exactly liked listening to him, and Peter Ducey, I've never really cared for him either. It just seems to me like Fox News is trying to get rid of some of the more based people on the platform. I remember Morgan Ortagus. She came around for a while, and she seemed to me like she was pretty well based in what she was talking about, and pretty much she was pretty good when it came to discussion and debate. She's no longer around. She comes up there every now and again, but she's not being featured nowhere near as much, which, by the way, also goes against Fox News' mantra. You see, Roger Ailes, he had this thing where if you just simply show a little bit of leg, it would bring in more male viewers. It worked. And not all of the females that they put up there that showed a little bit of leg were dumb. They really and truly weren't. They weren't exactly what we call stupid. I remember Noelle Nick-Poor, if you guys remember who she was up there at one point in time, pretty well attractive. She kind of came off a little bit like me, a little bit of a working class redneck, but she was pretty well smart. A lot of people don't realize this, but Allison Camerota at one point in time, when she was at CNN, she also worked at Fox News as well. Very funny how it is that CNN basically made her put on weight, basically have a stash and dye her hair and put some glasses on her. Makes you almost wonder exactly what they were going on there as far as the look is concerned. Fact of the matter is that Fox News, for the most part, does not want base personnel back on their platform anymore. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, well, I thought you said earlier that Sean Hannity was being put through a humiliation ritual. I honestly believe he is being put through a humiliation ritual. I think that humiliation ritual is to get him out there to say, look, we've probably got some things on him. That's why they're not really telling you that, but they're showing you. We're making him wear the CIA pin. We're making him do all this crazy stuff because, quite frankly, that's correct. We've got stuff on him. Also, one more thing, too, about Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity comes from the 1980s Reagan School of Politics, meaning he comes from the Reagan School of Conservatism. I grew up on the Reagan School of Conservatism, and my conservatism eventually shifted much more into more of a paleo type of conservatism. Reaganism, for the most part, is neoconservatism. I am somebody who's more of a neocon when it comes to foreign policy. I accept the fact is I'm not as I put it this way here. I'm a little bit more moderate when it comes to actual wars themselves. I don't believe in fighting stupid wars, but I do believe in Reagan's peace through strength policy, which is basically course correction. Hit somebody if they screw up or they attack you, you attack them back, you attack them 10 times harder, but you don't just invade their country. When it comes to domestic policy, I'm pretty sure you guys know where I'm at on that. I'm pretty well on the right on this case when it comes to economics. I'm more right-leaning, meaning I'm more of a moderate in that case. However, the thing is this right here. Fox News, it seems to me like they're going to be going with the good old-fashioned establishment. Now, check out this right here. Lindsey Graham, okay? And I figured this out about Lindsey Graham back in like 2018, 2019 with this whole Brett Kavanaugh steal where he was went out there and basically put on a performance. I figured out a long time ago that Lindsey Graham is nothing more than an actor. He recently came out and he was okay with cutting Social Security. Well, right now, not the GOP frontrunner, but the person that Fox News wants to be the frontrunner, Ron DeSantis, he has a history of voting against entitlements. He has a history of voting against Social Security. Now, me personally, I think you could save a lot of money by chalking down America's overall foreign policy spending, and I do think that there's some things in our military that, quite frankly, could be cut as well. Stuff like bee watching, bird watching, microwaves, things that, quite frankly, I don't think are useful. I think you could probably cut a good $120 to $150 billion out of our budget as a whole and possibly cut our budget, and at the same time, you more than likely could get a lot of that money back with good old-fashioned entitlement reform, bringing back work requirement to welfare, stuff like that there. That's just what I believe you could do. And of course, as a result of this, you see that our budget continues to get more and more bloated. But Republicans, anytime they run on issues like cutting spending and whatnot, unless it's foreign spending, they always lose. It is my theory that what they want is they want this guy to be the nominee so that way he can lose. I've been saying it for a long time. They basically want to throw him out there like Mitt Romney. And guess what? According to Twitter, from what I've seen of him in Iowa, he seems to me to almost remind me a lot of what Mitt Romney looked like in 2012 going up there. I need to say this really quick. If you're a presidential candidate, especially if you're a Republican candidate, I think if you go somewhere like, say, Iowa, and you're out there mingling with the plebs and whatnot, I think it would be a good idea to not wear a button-up shirt and tuck it with blue jeans. It makes you look a little bit too, you look like a suburban going to a farm. You just look like a good old-fashioned city slicker trying to be country. Dude, you're better off just wearing blue jeans and a good old-fashioned Nike or Adidas or Under Armour t-shirt. You're better off doing that. You'll look a little bit more working class if you do that. Or if you decide you want to wear a suit, don't sport a tie. Wear khaki pants to go along with the sport coat, a lot like what Trump did back in 2016. Why not try that instead? Fact of the matter is that Fox News is doing this because they want to get the most based voices off the platform. And one more thing, too. Notice something really quick. Paul Ryan has been doing a lot of the creative work at Fox, angling towards suburban voters, which, by the way, is a losing strategy. Have you noticed that Jeb Bush, anytime it pops up, he keeps on saying, I want Ron DeSantis to run for president? Did you ever think that the reason why he keeps on saying I want him to run instead of saying I want him to win is because I want him to divide the GOP so that way the GOP will have no choice but to go back to old-fashioned neoconservatism, which, by the way, is a losing method and a losing strategy? Look, I love Ronald Reagan, but at the same time, though, I think we've kind of moved on from that, all right? It sounds to me like that's what Fox News is trying to do, is go back to good old-fashioned neoconservatism rather than good old-fashioned America first, working-class conservatism. With that right there being said, guys, let me go ahead and give you guys these couple of updates, and we're going to go ahead and close this video down. You've probably noticed that I've only released one video a day so far this week, this right here being the only video for Wednesday. Well, the reason why I'm doing that is because the overall workload right now has kind of, how do I say, I've kind of balanced it out. Now, this is not going to be the platform going forward. What's probably going to happen is that sometime next week, I'm probably going to go back to posting 2 videos a day after Memorial Day. On Memorial Day, there's going to be a video that I'm going to do about Memorial Day itself. Like, why is it that you should not thank me for my service on Memorial Day, me being a veteran, and why it is that that is kind of reserved for Veterans Day. We're going to be talking about that then, but there's probably only going to be maybe 1 video a day so far this week as far as every day. It's going to be a video on like Thursday and Friday, and there may be a couple of additional videos out on Saturday and Sunday. I'm not sure yet. I don't know if it's a good idea. I'd kind of like you guys to kind of enjoy Memorial Day weekend. Something else, too, to consider is that I'm considering bringing the short timer prepping tab over here to John Claymore. Let me explain what I mean by this. The videos that I've done on immigration, crime, and of course the stuff that's been going on, like what the bike carrying and stuff, that stuff there still falls into the category of my version of prepping. The reason why is because it's not so much that you're being prepped as far as good old-fashioned prepping channels, like what to buy, gun channels, something like that. The reason why I'm doing that is because it's pure politics. I'm prepping you for what's yet to come. If there's any additional prepping to go, then obviously that's going to be there. Obviously, something like, say, crime, whatnot, would obviously go in that playlist. I'm thinking about reworking the playlist altogether, and I may do that on Memorial Day. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not going out of town or anything. However, my Memorial Day weekend starts the following week, which I cannot tell you guys where I'm going to be going. But the goal is to, on the dates of June the 3rd, June the 4th, June the 5th, and possibly June the 6th, the goal is to have 4 separate video essay projects out. One of them, of course, is going to be on the traditional conservative versus red pill versus blue pill movement. Another one's going to be the one on gaming. Another one's going to be on pop culture. And I have not figured out what the other one is going to be, but we're going to start doing a lot more video essays. Of course, it's going to take a while to transition it because YouTube has this thing about promoting your content. And I want to make sure the content's actually being actually pumped out before I actually do that. I'm very, very, very busy. I stick to a very, very busy schedule, even during the little bit of time that I have to do the videos. But expect only 1 video a day, probably tomorrow being Wednesday, and then probably probably back to 2 videos a day through about Sunday, and then probably the 1 video on Monday, and then of course 2 videos a day going into Thursday, and of course the 1 video a day throughout the weekend the following week until I get back from the place I'm going to be at, because that right there is going to be my Memorial Day weekend celebration. Guys, I just figured I'd go ahead and throw that out there. If you guys think that I've earned your subscription, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Please hit the notifications bell so that way you guys are notified when my videos come out. I'll be giving you guys updates along the way. As a matter of fact, every video this week is probably going to have some updates in it at the very end, so make sure you guys hang around for that. And as I said before, if you guys obviously like this content, and if I did earn your subscription, please make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, and please hit the thumbs up button. Leave a comment in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'll see you guys later.